The story begins with the introduction of a beautiful woman named Elia, who has fallen for a man she met through a dating application. Elia lives with her mother, Sadat, who continuously talks about Elia's field of study, culinary arts, and firmly believes that women should learn cooking from their grandmothers and mothers. To stand her ground, Elia begs that she would love to advance academically, but this to Sadat is no justification. At this point, Elia's cousin, Elchim, comes along with some good news. She's engaged and would be married shortly. When Sadat discovers that Elchim's fiancé is a wealthy man, she gets a little jealous and secretly wishes Elia will also marry a wealthy man. Elia, for her part, insists that love is worth more to her than money. This reply angers Sadat again, and she yells at Elia to go and prepare them some tea. While Sadat is busy on the phone with a relative, Elia informs Elchim that she's actually been seeing a man named Sami, whom she met through a dating app. The story is that Sami and his family are one of the wealthiest in the area and own a massive lumber factory on the outskirts of Istanbul. Sami occasionally visits the factory to take care of things himself. When Sadat puts down the receiver and returns to the living room, Elia tells her that she would like to go to Istanbul for a job interview. Sadat at once opposes her daughter's visit to the great city on the pretext that it is quite convenient for Elia to get a good job in their home city of Izmir and has no reason to leave home. To convince her mother, Elia vows that she'll return within 3 days and will be staying with Elchim's cousin in Istanbul during her time away. Eventually, Sadat agrees, but only if Elia fails to get this job interview. She'll be forced to marry the man her mother has chosen for her. The next day, Elia sets off for Istanbul, with Sadat reminding her once again about their agreement before she leaves. After a while, Elia arrives in Istanbul, but instead of going to Elchim's cousin's house, she heads straight to Sami's house and sees him standing at the front door. When Elia follows Sami to the house, she's met by 3 women at the door, all dressed in matching outfits. Elia tells them she wants to see Sami. The 3 sisters invite Elia inside. The eldest introduces herself as Nermin. The second sister, who is Sami's mother, is named Nasreen, and the youngest sister is Nevin. During the visit, Nasreen asks Elia and her son how they got to know each other. Unable to disclose the reality that they met through a dating application, Elia fabricates the details and tells her that she and Sami were classmates. In that instant, a man named Alper enters the house, and the moment he sees Elia present, he suddenly feels dizzy and weak. This makes the aunts worried, and after finally managing to revive Alper, he departs without saying anything. Soon after, Alper comes back into the room and starts explaining to Sami that he met a woman through a dating app. He confesses that the woman is actually Elia, who is in their house, and that over the past few months, they have grown close by chatting on the internet. After a lot of vague explanations, Alper finally admits that he had been using Sami's identity to chat with Elia, because if he had used his real identity, no woman would have agreed to get to know him. This confession makes Sami furious, because Alper had pulled this stunt before, which had almost caused big trouble for the family. Now that Elia was at their house, Alper begs Sami to help him in facing her. But Sami refuses and tells Alper that he should tell Elia the truth himself so that she could scold him, slap him if she likes, then leave. However, Alper, not wanting to disappoint Elia, tries again to convince Sami and assures him that Elia is a nice and beautiful woman. Sami finally agrees reluctantly. As Sami enters the living room and sees Elia, he is attracted to her beauty. As soon as Alper understands that Sami is mesmerized by Elia's beauty, he promises to help him talk to her and assures him that he will never trick him like that again. For this reason, Sami tries to get himself together and is finally ready to meet Elia. Elia, seeing Sami so confused, reminds him that they had promised each other when they spoke yesterday that they would see each other today. The aunts join the conversation here and start speaking about how Alper sits in front of his computer for way too long and how it might not be healthy for him. While they converse, Nermin offers them tea. Elia offers to help her. Just as she is about to tell them the true motive of her visit to Istanbul, she receives a call from Elchim. When Elia writes back, she tells Elchim that Sami is behaving oddly and that he's not at all like the man she'd been chatting with all these months. He can't even remember the things they'd said, even though they'd spoken every day and had grown so close. After the call ends, The aunts notice that Sami is planning to head to the stables and ask him to take Elia along with him. On the way, Elia talks about Sami's family, who own the lumber factory. That moment, Elia gets a message from the company letting her know that her job interview has been postponed by 3 days. A child. Sami used to go to the stables with his late father, where his father taught him important lessons in life. Now Sami decides to teach Elia horse riding and hands over his favorite horse to her. Through this activity, they bond and their relationship warms up. It is clear now that Sami is slowly starting to fall in love with Elia too. Sami and his family offer Elia dinner at home in the evening. Apart from that, the aunts offer Elia to stay overnight at their house and prepare some things for her, so she can rest well since the three of them are glad to have her with them. A little later, as Sami is passing by the guest room and sees his aunts and mother chatting with Elia, he decides to give her a gift. He gives Elia a goblet he crafted himself. Meanwhile, Sami's aunts and his mother give Elia a key and, according to their tradition and belief, tell her she should place it under her pillow to dream of her future husband. The moment they exit the room, Elia places the key under her pillow and wishes that she will dream of Sami. However, as she cannot sleep, she volunteers to go out to the yard and get some air. Sami, too, could not sleep, and he happens to see her, since they are alone. Sami admits to Sam that he himself was nervous tonight since he was confronted unexpectedly with a beautiful woman who suddenly came into their house. He then tells Elia she's fascinated by her own beauty. When she hears this, she gets red in the face and walks away from him right away. While Elia is getting ready for bed, Alper simply walks into her room, saying that he needs to talk to her about something very important. He starts with apologizing for the way his mother and aunts have been fussing around her. However, Elia tells him it had not interrupted her at all. On the contrary, she appreciates their good deed and respect. After chatting a bit about the aunts, Alper brings up the dating app. He explains that if he had used his real photo, no woman would have agreed to talk to him. Finally, he confesses that he deliberately created an account using Sami's identity and that he was the one chatting with Elia all these months. Truth being spoken infuriates Elia since she realizes that Alper had been deceiving her for months. Alper begs vehemently for her to fake it for a couple of days since if his mother finds out what he has done, she will severely punish him. Because Elia's job interview was postponed 3 days, she is reluctantly agreeing to Alper's ruse, primarily because she would rather not return home to Izmir right away and be coerced into marriage by her own mother. Then Elia asks Alper if Sami has any suspicion about the whole thing. Alper reluctantly admits that he begged Sami to go along with him from the very beginning. The following morning, Elia is surprised when the aunts and mother of Sami suddenly enter her room. They had assumed that she could be dead and had not been breathing while sleeping, since they previously had a tragic incident in the past and had become accustomed to checking if their family members were still alive at night. After taking a shower and changing her clothes, Elia immediately calls Elçim to ask about her cousin's situation, since she was supposed to stay at her cousin's house the next night. Unfortunately, her cousin still hasn't responded to Elçim's messages. So, Elçim advises Elia to stay at Sami's family's house for a few more days so she won't have to return to Izmir just yet. While all of us were enjoying breakfast, Nevin announced that she had heard a weather forecast stating that there would be a sandstorm in the area. This news was completely made up by Nevin since all three aunts did not want Elia to step out so that she would stay in their house for a little while longer. Remembering what Alper had taught her, Elia got irritated, observing that Sami was still maintaining the charade. Thus, she thought she would play a prank on him slightly and intentionally served him some very hot chili powder. Sami, knowing that he had a sensitive stomach to such food, could not possibly resist taking the spoonful of food that Elia had handed him. It immediately led to stomach cramps and diarrhea. After breakfast, Elia asked Sami to study together, something that was even one of Alper's hobbies. But because of the spicy meal, Sami already felt so unpleasant that he could no longer endure the discomfort and had to excuse himself to rush to the bathroom. While sitting in the living room once more, Elia intentionally taunted Sami by cracking sunflower seeds right before him. Just the way the aunts were accustomed to doing today in the afternoon, Elia baked a cake for the family, but made every effort to steer clear of Sami due to still being upset with him over faking some point subsequently. There was a woman who introduced herself as Hand, making Sami visibly uncomfortable. Hans suffered from a mental illness since childhood and visited their household annually to force everyone to play pretend along with her fantasy world. Hans' family had always been good neighbors. The aunts never wanted to spoil her heart. Hand had also had a crush as a kid on Sami, which now made the situation even more complicated for Elia. Having had enough of Hand's daydream of becoming an air hostess, Elia was required to leave the room. Elia was alone in her room. Sami visited her since he was worried about her. Meanwhile, he was suspicious of what she was up to, as she had been so different today compared to how close they had been the day before. Elia, who could no longer remain silent, lost her temper and shouted at Sami for playing with women's feelings. Sami, still ignorant of Alper's confession, kept on doing the same and never provided any reason to her. The next morning, Elia once again faced the aunts and Sami's mother, who were still deep in their game, pretending to be airline passengers. Elia tried to join in to keep the peace, but this upset Hand, who felt jealous seeing how close Elia was getting to the aunts. Later, Sami and Alper entered the room, also pretending to be passengers, but the aunts immediately scolded them for joining the game without Hand's permission. To calm everyone down, Elia decided to make coffee for everyone, though she was still hurt by Sami's silence about the truth. While Elia was in the kitchen, Nevin came to help her and started talking about Sami's late grandmother. She said that Sami's grandmother had always wished to eat her favorite dish one last time, but she passed away in her sleep before they could make it for her. After their mother's death, the aunts began to worry about Sami's and Alper's futures, since despite their age, both were still single and had no children. They feared that without an heir, the family's wealth would be left without a successor. However, since Elia came into their home, Nevin had become hopeful that maybe Sami and Elia would get married, solving the problem of an heir a couple of years back. Sami had been dating a girl who cheated on him and hooked up with another guy. This cheating made Sami so bitter that he chose to join the army to escape. This made his dad suffer a heart attack, which killed him. When Elia brings the coffee for the group, Hand suddenly gets a call from her so-called boss, instructing her to return to the office immediately. Everyone is extremely thrilled to hear this news because last year Hand had spent 2 whole months in this house, and everyone was tired of her attitude. Later in the night, Elia goes to see Sami, who is outside stacking firewood to light a bonfire in the backyard. This is the prime time for Elia to have a talk with him. As they talk, Sami reveals to her the history of his life, such as how he used to bring his fiancée here to roast marshmallows with her. As Sami and Elia talk, the aunts sit and watch from a distance, questioning whether they are speaking of their wedding. Both Sami and Elia admit that despite everything that has occurred, these 3 days have been great for them, and neither of them wants to make it just a trick. Sami apologizes for pretending the entire time and informs him that he is not the kind of guy who uses online dating in the first place. Elia tells him that what drives her to this house in the first place is following her heart. Remaining perfectly relaxed beside Sami, she leans her head in his lap and sleeps there. Before she falls asleep, Sami looks at the photos of Elia taken around the house, which makes him fall for her even more. The next morning, Elia says goodbye to the aunts and Sami's mother because it's time for her to return to Izmir. She decides not to pursue the job interview in Istanbul anymore. Elia then asks Alper to delete her account on the dating app and tells him never to lie to another girl like that again. The aunts also tell Elia that Sami is still asleep and demand that she go say goodbye to him, hoping she will change her mind and stay. Following Sami's mother and aunt's wishes, Elia goes into Sami's room to tell him that she's leaving for Izmir today. Both of them feel genuinely heartbroken about parting, but Elia has no real reason to stay, and Sami doesn't know how to stop her. Just as Elia is about to leave the house, Sami suddenly decides to go with her to Izmir, saying that it's now his turn to meet Elia's family. This decision delights the aunts and Sami's mother, who now hope that Elia's family will approve of their relationship so that Sami and Elia can get married soon.